Congrats on finishing your square. The last step is to tying these loose ends. The first thing to notice about this project is that the entry loop only happens on one corner of each square. So if you look closer at here, this is where it bunches up, where all the double crochets went into the entry loop right here. You notice that it repeats here, 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 and here. It's important to identify where that is, because when we tie in a loose end like this one, we're going to tie it around a post, and then we're going to hide it inside of this bunched up double crochets right here. I'm going to start with a loose end in the center of your project. This one, I'm going to tie this in either over here or over here. But the important thing to notice is that it comes out on the left side of this stitch right here. So what I want to do is I want to enter over here and come underneath, just like that. I want to yarn over a little bit there. I'm going to pull that through. I'm going to pull the extra yarn tight, so that way I have a loop over my hook. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to chain two. The first chain anchors it onto the post, and the second one locks it in, and I pull out. Just like that, and I pull that really tight there. That way, the first chain, if I just did that one, it might become loose and your project might fall apart over time. The second one locks it, but if I do a third one, it's going to be really hard to hide it inside of here. So I suggest just the two chain right there. Now the next part I'm going to do is I have to get through these stitches right here. So since I want to have it enter this side, I'm going to start from the other side here. I'm just going to push this through. That's one of the double crochets. That's the second. And here's the third. Now this is the part earlier when I said that you do yourself a big favor if you crochet really loose around the entry loop. It's going to be easier to get your hook through there. Otherwise it's going to be really tight, and you just have to take your time to get the loops on there. And since there's 3 double crochets, it results in 6 pieces of yarn going around your hook. If you have 5, that's okay. If it's 4, it might be a little hard to hide the knot in there. So what we're going to do is we're going to put the yarn around here, and I suggest not putting it really close to the end here, because then it gets hard to pull it through. So get it about halfway through or close to the end. And then we're going to pull up on the crochet hook a little bit there. That creates a little opening, and make sure that your hook is facing down. If it's facing up, it's going to catch on the top. So we're going to point it down right here, and then it should slide right on through. That might take a few tries. It'll get easier as you keep going. So we're going to just pull it through there. We're going to kind of hide it in there in the center. I'm going to grab my scissors here. I'm going to cut it just a little bit outside of there. I want a little bit of slack. Now when I come back here, I'm going to pull it, and it's going to kind of hide right in there. But there's enough extra yarn where it's not going to pull back out, and the 2 chain hide in there pretty nicely. This another time with the new color. Let's choose this strand here with the yellow. So the first thing I do is I see where it comes out. It's around here. That means I have 2 options. There's one of the entry loops right here, one of them right here. So I'm going to choose this one down here. So since my yarn's coming from the left side here, I'm going to put my hook in from the right side. Actually, it comes out clean there. I'm going to yarn it over there and pull it through. And now it gives me a loop on my hook. So I'm going to chain 2. It's 1 and 2. Then I'm going to pull through. Now that I have it knotted there, it's not coming back out. Now I can try and get my hook through here. Get those 6 pieces of yarn over my hook. Just got that one. Just kind of work it through. There we are. Got all 6 there. Sometimes I like to pull it up like that at this point. Give yourself a little tunnel in there. Now we're going to get the yarn pinched on the end there. Don't forget to turn your hook upside down. We're going to pull that. Sometimes you have to wiggle a little bit, and you can pull that on through. Now sometimes it's going to snag on another piece of yarn inside of here, and sometimes you have to backtrack, kind of wiggle around, kind of feel your way. And sometimes if it's really tough, you can do it a couple at a time. You could just do 2 loops, pull it through, and then try it again on the other ones. Because sometimes one of your stitches might be really tight, and it's hard to get them all through there, especially all at once. So now that we got it pulled through there, so I'm just like to pull it a little tight there. I can see the knot kind of poking through there. Take my scissors, cut it a little bit away from the end there. Then I could fluff that back out, just like that. Is when you see right here, this little junction, when you did a color change, I can actually pull it apart, and over time that might come all the way undone and stitches will start coming undone. So when we look at this junction here, it looks like even the yarn is pulling from this side, it exits really close to this post. If I chose to go around this side, that's a few layers to get through, and it might become kind of bulky or a little pinch it when you do the chain to tie this off. That's why I like to do it on this side, because it's a single post here, and then you can just go through this little area here to hide your tail there. It's also important to tug on the tails before you decide where to tie them in. If we start tugging on this, we notice that doesn't seem right, because it's right here, and I would probably want to put it through here. But I noticed that as I tug on it, it comes from a different spot. So what we need to do is get it close to where it should be over here. We're just going to pull that through. And this happens from time to time depending on where your bundles fall on the left or right side of your project. And then we can do this as normal, tie it around the post and hide it right here above the entry loop. There is a really fast way to tie in ends on the sides of your project, and I'll show you when to use it and when it doesn't work. Where it does work is when you finish your project going up here, this is where you end, it's on the decrease. These two strings end up right in the same spot because when we finish this block it ends up here, and then we single crochet back over, so they end up in the same spot. Here, we could just tie a square knot. We can do that right here, and we can actually get it kind of flush, not all the way tight, but kind of firm. We fold that over, I'm back in there, and that makes us a little square knot. If you don't know how to tie a square knot, a granny knot's just fine, as long as you just fold it twice. And then we can get this through our hook, those 6 stitches. Attempt to pull that through. There we go. Leave a little room again. And that covers that side. Now the other side, when we start the project here, and the color change happens on the side, we look closely here. Both the stitches are kind of central here. And this one, we would tie off near this post. But this one, if we tried to do in a square knot, it would end up in the middle of our stitch. And when we try to hide it, this green would sneak over and you have that color bleed all the way over. So we can't do it on this side, it doesn't work. So what we'd have to do is finish this guy off on the post, and like the corners, we'd have to walk it over here, tie off the post, and then hide it on this side. Now that we've finished most of the tails in our project, we have a couple left, the corners. So the start and the finish of your project. The problem with these ones is that we needed to go into one of the entry loops. But when you look closely here, there's only one per square, right? But it's on the wrong side. So what we need to do is weave it between these guys here till it gets close to this portion, and then we can hide it inside of here. So I'm going to turn this around so it's up top here. And this doesn't really matter if you go down or up. I'm going to choose to go up over here. So I'm going to put it through these 2 loops. I'm just going to yarn over and pull through. And I want to make sure that it doesn't get too tight over here. And then I'm going to do the opposite on this side because I want it to, it comes up here, down through here, and then back up through here. Let's put that through there. And pull that through here. Now we've climbed a little bit over, it's close enough. We can wrap it around this post and then hide it in here. So if I pull it from the same side, it's going to undo it a little bit. So I'm actually going to flip it over. Put the yarn through there. Then I'm going to chain 2, just like the other ones. Pull through. Then we get it through these. Trying to find my 6 again. Got 4 of them there. And all 6. I'm going to tug on it a little bit. Get a little room there. Pinch that off and pull it through. This is being a little stubborn. How to walk it through there. Kind of pull it inside there. And when you do the 2 chain right here, it's important to make sure that you're still squared off. Sometimes you can have it pulled really tight and it'll kind of curve the corner towards it. So just make sure you have that pinched off when you do the chains. I'm going to cut that a little bit above the knot. Then we can pull that back out. We had just finished the starting block end, and now we're going to do the last block of the project. Since I decided to do an increase on the last stitch, it makes this a little stronger, so I can pull this one a little tighter than the other one. So I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to weave through, because when I look at this, I see in this block, there's one entry loop area right here, and I'm going to walk it down this way towards it. It's not good to do it this way because then you have to turn 2 corners to get to it, and you can just kind of have a hanging piece of yarn right in the middle there. So we're going to go with those 2 loops, yarn over and pull through. And since there's the increase, I can pull this one tighter, and it still keeps the squared corner there. Let's do a couple more of these. Now this one, after 2 stitches, I think that got close enough. So now what I'm going to do is, I'm going to go as far over on the left as I can. And then I'm going to find where that stitch is right here. Yarn over and pull through. This is the point I decide to make it how tight I want it. That kind of determines the shape of the corner a little bit. So when I have that where I'd like it, I'm going to yarn over, I'm going to chain 2. Then pull through. Then just like all the others, I'm going to put my hook through the 6 pieces of yarn here. There's 2. This one's fighting me a little more than the other ones. And do what you can to not split the yarn as you go through. Just take your time. I'm going to give that a little tug there. Give a little hallway for it. Then we're just going to pull that through. Got that piece there. Cut it a little bit shy. Oh, there we go. Coax that back out. And there we are. You have finished your project.